If you're looking for an emerging resources company that is perfectly situated to take advantage of record gold prices and the big Canadian research to develop critical resources, then look no further than Renforth Resources, which trades in Canada, the stock symbol RFR, in the US, RFHRF, and for our friends in Europe, 9RR on Frankfurt. The company is advancing two flagship assets in one of the most mining-friendly locations in the world in Quebec. But today, we're talking only about their Parbec Gold Deposit that now totals 363,000 ounces of gold, which is a 29% increase in total ounces over when we just spoke 8 days ago. Multiply that by $4,600 gold in Canadian dollars, because that's the calculation as of now. And you can see the scale and potential value. And here to talk about it is Nicole Brewster, CEO. Nicole, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me again. I appreciate everyone taking their time to listen to me.
So first of all, we just spoke on April 2nd, and it seems like a whirlwind has taken place since then. The Trump tariffs turned the markets upside down. And the one thing though that held true is that gold has made another new high. I just checked it a while ago, $3,239 US this morning. What are your thoughts now that you've increased? We'll talk about the increase in your gold ounces, but what are your thoughts? How much better is Renforth looking right now?
Well, Renforth's looking fantastic, period. The resource we're about to speak about was calculated using $2,100 US per ounce. So, I mean, the resource as it hits the wires is inaccurate because the price of gold is ridiculous. Are you a gold bug? Do you believe it's going to stay here? Do you believe the world order is going to settle itself down? Unfortunately, I think we're in for a bit of a bumpy ride, and the world is changing. And I think gold is it's central bank buying, and I think they're going to continue to do it, and they're not going to become immediate sellers. So gold's been resilient when people expected gold to go down. So I feel very good to have a very interesting surface gold deposit next door to what was Canada's largest open pit, but what is a key asset of Canada's largest mining company. I think we're in a pretty
Yeah,
good place.
and you and I have been have been around long enough to know sometimes you see certain metal prices just skyrocket on a lot of buzz, but gold's just been doing that stair step, nice and steady, stair step, stair step. So I don't see it. I'm not in the crowd that says 5,000 or 10,000. I'm not there, but I don't see it really going back much. If you told me it stayed over 3,000 for the rest of 2025 at this level,
That's We're on the same page. That's my expectation. I was asked to do a survey yesterday and what's my outlook for gold at the end of 2025, and I was like 32 to 3,400. I mean, I think it'll gyrate in here. I think volatility is the new normal, but I do see it maintaining the 3,000 level.
yeah. Yeah. And we're going to talk about your $2,100 number so people understand that. But before we get to that deep, let's talk about the actual number. So, when we spoke last week, you were somewhere around 260, I don't know, it was about 266,000 ounces. I can't remember, it was 8 days ago, but now you're up here. Let's talk about how do you, because for people at home, you divide that up into measured, indicated, inferred. So let's talk a little bit about that for people that A, understand, and B, why you're happy with the way you're seeing the numbers categorized.
For sure. And if it's okay, I'll just share my screen and we'll put some numbers people can see while I speak in
Yep.
front of them.
Yep.
So bear with me for a moment. I will
This would be our
share my
musical interlude.
screen.
Doot, 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 doot. There we go.
And I'm going to make it bigger. So there we go. You can see this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Caution to the reader, I'm the president and the CEO. You're always encouraged to do your own due diligence with regard to anything I have to say. You can always email me, Nicole at Renforth Resources, with your questions. I'll answer you. So, Parbec Gold Deposit, that's what we're here to talk about today. This is the new resource statement. It came out just a couple days ago. So you spoke to categories, and you see in the open pit, there's measured, indicated, and then measured and indicated are added together. So measured is the highest degree of confidence in the exploration world that an ounce of gold can have. It means it's been It means it's been drilled and returned results within a very tight physical space. And we're very unique in that we have 44,000 measured ounces in an open pit. An open pit means that the ounces start at surface within an economically derived open pit, which suggests that there's viability to those ounces. The economic characteristics used to create the resource are expressed as a cutoff grade, but we also take into consideration some of the costs to operate. So that's what drives the cutoff grade, as well as the price of gold used. So as the price of gold goes up, cutoff grade can come down. Um, but
And that
actually,
means for everyone at home, that means more ounces of gold can be added.
right.
Because you use $2,100, it's almost like some gold is almost unreachable from an economic point of view. But as you take that cutoff price higher and higher, it means you can add more gold in. So this not only does the price go higher, but the
Right.
amount of
And
gold
and
goes higher,
it's
right?
correct. So to speak to that, we know that within, okay, I'm going to switch to a slide. Here's the next picture. In gray is the open pit. In red and orange are the modeled mineralized bodies. So you can see some of them are in the open pit, some are under. The cutoff grade for the stuff under is higher because it presumes underground mining, which is more expensive than open pit mining. Now, within the open pit, though, we know there's 24,000 ounces of gold within these mineralized envelopes that is below the cutoff grade used. So we can apply different cutoff grades and we can see the number of gold ounces increase. We know there's 24,000 of them if we remove the cutoff grade in total. If you were to mine this, you're not going to leave the low grade ounces behind. You're going to take those into consideration. So we go to the trouble of providing that number to people that are trying to get a handle on what's really there. If they were to mine it, what would they really get? Well, they get those other 24,000 ounces we know about based on the work done to date.
And by the way, you're talking about open pit. So there on the left-hand side, type open pit. A lot of times you see measured and indicated. So going back to that graph you had there for a second, that table you had, a lot of times you'll see Georgecom gold. Yeah, I've got 265,000 ounces of measured and indicated gold. But if that's 1,000 feet underground, that doesn't help. But talk to us about this open pit and how far from surface a lot of these ounces are right now.
So we'll speak to one other thing quickly because it comes up in the next slide.
Okay.
Indicated, which is the next. Previously, we had indicated and inferred. So with this resource, not only have we increased the ounces on the property by 29%, we've upgraded the classification. We've increased the confidence in those ounces being there. Um,
Nice.
Immeasurably, actually, because now we have most of the resource is indicated within the open pit, so 221,000 ounces, which brings you to 265,000 point eight. 265,000 ounces measured and indicated within the open pit. There is a bit of inferred ounces as well,
And that's where I came up
which
with
is
my
a
number where I
lesser
said
degree of confidence.
366,000 because I added the two, but you're breaking it down for us.
Yeah, yeah. And then underground, we decided to only present inferred ounces underground because really Parbec's an open pit deposit. Parbec is being presented as an open pit deposit to encourage the viewer to understand that it's an open pit, meaning, oh, let me show you. It's an open pit, meaning this is the surface. In green, we've angled this view, but it is on surface. The pit starts on surface as well. The pit is the hole we have to dig to get to the gold ounces. Um, we're presenting an open pit here. There's a few reasons we're presenting an open pit. We're sitting next door to what was Canada's largest open pit gold mine. It had an open pit that was 4 kilometers long and 400 meters deep. Our open
Oh
pit,
my.
our
That's
open pit
unbelievable.
is, yeah, our open pit goes down as deep as 300 meters. And you can see we have drilling and we have gold outside of the open pit. But we also have a lot of voids in our model, and we've got a lot of target drill holes now if we were to drill Parbec again, if that could change the pit would change. Um, However, right now we've got these ounces starting at surface within this pit. And we have, road access. Um, we're sitting beside Canadian Malartic. Canadian Malartic, that pit, 4 kilometers long, we consider ourselves a miniature version. We have similar geological characteristics to the Barnett and East Malartic deposits, which form part of the Canadian Malartic super pit. Our pit maybe strikes over 1 kilometer and change. It's not 4 kilometers. It can't be 4 kilometers long. We only have 1.8 kilometers of the Cadillac break on the property to play with. But we are a look-alike. We have road access, and we have, I'm going to show you.
Actually, while you're showing me that, let me go back there for a second. You've actually said that Parbec is like a small scale replica of
Yeah,
Agnico Eagle's Canadian Malartic mine. Do these results and what's flowed from
and
it
that's not me
give you
saying
even
that. I
more
mean,
confidence that you may be a small scale replica of it? Do you have even more
absolutely.
confidence now?
Absolutely. And to clarify, that's not me saying that. That's project geologists, the people who know these things saying that. And our
Wow.
modeling, our open pit combined with our new geological interpretation, they have characteristics similar to Barnett and East Malartic, which was incorporated as the eastern part of the Canadian Malartic pit. Those are two historic deposits which operated until they became part of the 5 deposits that went into forming Canadian Malartic. So, yeah, we stand by that. Of course, we're smaller. That's just the reality. We'd love to be bigger, but we're also, don't forget, we're on the Cadillac break. And we see we have mineralization under the pit. And we see that next door at Canadian Malartic, the Odyssey deposit, which is going to be processed on the property now, it started at 1,000 meters deep. So we're on a very deep-seated gold structure, and we have every reason. We do have some very deep pierce points that we cannot bring into the resource because they're just way too deep. So we know we have depth potential as well. Um, we have road access. There's the road. It's a logging road. It's a very nice road. It goes right in front of our pit at it, or our at it. We have a decline that goes underground in place. So that's underground infrastructure in place as well. Um, so the
You got
mineralization
everything
brought to
lined up.
surface,
Like
we can
you
see
you got everything lined up.
yeah.
You,
And we have a big question mark right here in the northwest part of the property where we're moving away from the rail line. And we also have a big question mark here in the south. And we know the mineralization continues on to our neighbor in both regards. Our neighbor, of course, is Agnico Eagle. So Agnico Eagle is pursuing, well, they're active in M&A. They acquired Canadian Malartic fully from their partner Yamana, and they just recently acquired O3 to get their hands on the Marban deposit. Agnico is pursuing a fill-the-mill strategy at Canadian Malartic they speak publicly about. They cannot meet with the production of Odyssey, the 60,000 tons per day they need. Um, Parbec's sitting
and
right
hold on,
there.
and for everyone at home, again, people who are not as well versed, they've got a mill. They need to keep filling that. They don't
5.
have enough.
They have 5 processing
Wow.
locations at Canadian Malartic, totaling a feed requirement of 60,000 tons per day. They have all the employees, the infrastructure, everything for that.
So they
Two
need to keep
years
feeding
ago,
that beast, and they
right,
may need you at some point to help feed that beast because you got to feed the machine.
they got to feed the machine,
Maybe.
maybe. A couple years ago, in fact, a year ago, I heard Sean Boyd, the chairman, speak, and he was talking about right-sizing the infrastructure. The plan has changed. I confirmed that at PDAC, and you can confirm it yourself in reading about Canadian Malartic if you're so inclined. They are pursuing a fill the mill strategy. To do that, they've just acquired the Marban. Can you see my cursor, George?
Yep. We see it
Okay,
perfectly.
cool.
It's you're helping us out there with pointing it out.
The Marban Alliance, which was formerly owned by O3, has just been acquired by Agnico Eagle in the takeover of O3. Marban
How far is
production.
that from you? It's super close to the map. How far is that
This
from Parbec?
from here to here is about 3 kilometers. So Marban,
Whoa,
20, 15 from us, but
that's awesome.
from
That's
or
awesome.
from Canadian Malartic itself. So they intend to take Marban in order to fill the mill at Canadian Malartic. But the other thing they intend to use is Wasamac, way over here. deposit held by Agnico Eagle. Rouyn-Noranda is about an hour from the property by road. The road goes out of Malartic to the north, up here to Lapa, and then it goes under the Cadillac break for the most part.
Right.
Or
Can
on
see that
top
there.
of, sorry, the Cadillac break is under the highway. It's about an hour away. More. Rouyn's an hour. This is probably another 20 minutes. They're going to bring that material to fill the mill. Rumor has been they're going to bring material from Upper Beaver in their Kirkland Lake complex, which they acquired when they bought out Kirkland Lake Gold and other M&A a while ago. That's a rumor. They say they're going to bring it in by rail. There's the rail line right there. So the rail line crosses Parbec, as you saw in the Parbec picture, and it's repeatedly cited by Agnico as problematic for the Parbec deposit. However, it can, of course, be moved. And let's not forget that, Osisco moved half the town of Malartic to access the material. So, and on the east part of the east part of Canadian Malartic, they actually moved the highway already. So they moved the Trans-Canada to go around mineralization because it used to be when you drive on the highway, you were driving right beside drill rigs that were drilling into what is now Odyssey. So they actually moved part of the Trans-Canada highway. So I'm pretty confident they can move a rail line, a kilometer and a half of rail line, especially when the price of gold's now over $3,000 US, whatever you said it was Canadian, because we operate in Canadian dollars,
4,600 Canadian. So you don't have to be
right?
the biggest, right? Because you said earlier we're beside the biggest, we're nowhere near the biggest, but you don't have to be. You
We
can just
don't
be
have
like
to
you're
be.
saying, you can end up being a small scale replica and you just a strategic fit for the big daddy that's already there and needs you to
They
help
need this
fill
number right here.
the conveyor
This,
belts, for lack of a layman term.
right. This is the number they need right here. Tonnage. Canadian Malartic went into production with a stated resource grade of maybe 1.1 grams per ton. Memory can't quite. They had dilution. They had at least 10% dilution. They also stockpiled very low grade material right beside the road. Canadian Malartic is designed to produce low grade material, to process low grade gold on a huge scale. So now Odyssey is giving them higher grade gold, but it's not giving them the scale. Marban is a deposit that floats again around just under a gram. I want to say Marban's around 0.96, but I'm guessing. But Marban does offer tonnage. I don't know offhand the grade of Wasamac, but you can presume it's low grade as well. It's an open pit. So they're searching for tonnage. Parbec offers tonnage. Will Agnico bite today, tomorrow, next week, next month, in a year, 2 years? I don't really know. I'm confident at some point the material that's held in Parbec will go into the Canadian Malartic mill. Will it be Renforth who owns it, or will I have sold it to someone, or will I have a partner? Will we have joint ventured it? I don't know the answers to those questions either. But what I do know is the neighbor
Hold
needs
on,
gold, and they got to act.
but posing those questions means I'm going to give you questions. So is it fair to say that you're prepared to move it forward on your own if you have to, because you've done that to this point? But
Correct.
are you, and as objectively as possible, because look, I understand I'm asking a CEO, right? But as objectively as
There are
possible,
rules.
are you at the stage now where you present at your current stage a potentially attractive JV or sale? Is there enough meat on the bone right now that George Com Gold, I'm not going to use a real name out there, George Com Gold could come to you and say, I like this enough, Nicole, let's do a JV, or I like this enough, I want to buy it from you? Or do you still have more work to do? I'm trying to get you to be as
It's
objective as
open-ended.
possible because
You're correct. It's, and I have to be careful how I answer you. However, it's open-ended. Let me tell the viewers a few things. A resource does not guarantee a mine. We still have to do preliminary economic feasibility, all of those things if we were going to go the conventional banking route to open a mine. However, the fact that we have measured ounces, that we could probably do that tomorrow. I could start doing the PEA, but you're just writing big checks for studies. The other thing we could do is the modeling exercise has given us targets where we're pretty confident that if we drill a hole and we're successful and we intersect gold, we'll add ounces to the resource. Notice there's an if in there. It's important you hear that. But we're pretty confident that we would see a degree of success in adding ounces to the resource if we were to spend the money in the ground. I've been approached for partnership questions. I'm not in a rush to do anything. In terms of our ownership of the property, there's state claims in Quebec, and we've got them in good standing for one heck of a long time with a bunch of money banked on the claims. Because as you noticed in the image with the property, it's only what, 8 claims? It's not a lot of spending required to keep that property in good standing. So I don't have to do a desperation deal. Um, could it be purchased by someone? It's being and it has been evaluated. I can't speak to the evaluation considerations. One of them is definitely the railroad. However, were we to do work, I will tell you where we will do work. The railroad, the requirement is we stay 50 meters away from the railroad in every respect. You can take that to be subsurface and surface. We've got the mineralization extending over here. The break is bending away from the railroad. And down here we have the mineralization extending into the Pontiac. It's doing something different. Both of these are the target areas for additional work. We can add ounces within the model. This is a late fault that actually goes through the model, so we don't expect anything in there. But within the model, there are voids as well as under the pit. So there's lots of potential. And I mean, the railroad just becomes a question of price. Or you make use of the existing underground infrastructure, which terminates under the Cadillac Break. There's the property corner if you want to try and orient yourself. It terminates under the Cadillac Break. There's the railroad. So it's terminating just shy of the railroad, but it's at 100 meters depth, more than at that point. So that's a workable depth under the railroad. So it becomes a very technical question. Could I try to drive towards cash flow? Well, that's what I intend to do. I've been very public about telling people that we intend to monetize Parbec one way or another. Is it a sale, which is the quickest way to monetize Parbec? Is it a joint venture, which does not necessarily monetize Parbec for us today, but it would put money in the ground and it would add ounces with some success at Parbec, which we're pretty confident we can add ounces. It would just make it more expensive for someone to acquire in the future. Or do we try and take it into production ourselves? That last one's a big question. We're evaluating one strategy that might allow us to move forward in that direction. I don't have the results of that evaluation yet, and I won't for a little while. The other thing we might do if we end up working on Parbec this summer, we will be stripping either in here or here, and my preference, honestly, is up here, because we'll be looking to strip the overburden, which is about 1 to 3 meters of mud, basically, laying on top of the rock. So it's very shallow overburden in the way of mining today. We would expose the rock to see what it looks like, to sample it, and hopefully to eventually blast it and process for recovery of gold. That's a plan
Going
if
back, going back to where you're talking about monetizing it. I've seen
Mhm.
in the past some shallow open pit projects, the last several years, where they said, no, we don't need to pay for all the studies. We don't need to write all the, we're just going to start scooping because we're pretty confident we're going to get some
That's
decent money out of the
and
ground. And we're not going to, is that what you're potentially
that's what I'm
evaluating right
talking
now?
about. I'm talking about stripping in this area to start to access the mineralized material, to process it on a bulk sample basis, but for recovery of gold, create a little bit of cash flow to allow us to go forwards. To find an open pit is a cheaper infrastructure option. We don't have to build an underground mine.
Way
And another
cheaper. It's not
thing,
even close, right?
right, another thing to consider is Parbec would be toll milling if I do it.
What
Westwood,
does that mean for people who are watching and don't know what that means?
it means we would never build the processing facility. A mine consists of several things. It's a deposit, which is accessed from surface or underground. That's the infrastructure of the mine. But in order to do something with the material you dig up, you have to process it. You need to crush it, And then you need to, cyanide leach is how you're going to process gold. That's how our neighbor does it. They do column a cyanide leach, which we've tested. It works at Parbec. We tested our material in that fashion, and actually we found we have a nugget effect where we get, 0.55 grams per ton gold with fire assay, which is conventional assaying, whereas bottle roll cyanide leach, which mimics our neighbor, we get 0.92% gold. So nugget effect is a problem, in that we can't accurately fire assay it, but we do know there's gold there. However, would we build the processing facility? Because that's where things get really expensive, and that's where your
No,
environmental impact really come into play, because you're going to have tailings. So we don't have enough real estate to build, a big mill and infrastructure. So we would pay someone to do it for us and put it in their tailings pond. Westwood,
and that's where Agnico Eagle comes into play because they need somebody. So why would you? You'd rather that way. There's no risk. You don't go raise all that money. You don't got to go through all
well, and
that
it's
building all this stuff. You just reach out to Agnico, hopefully, and say, okay, hey,
so
we'll pay you to
great. But the black and white
mill this
box
for
is
us.
a mine. The triangles are the processing facilities. So there's Westwood, held by IM Gold. La Ronde, Agnico Eagle's crown jewel, the original reason Agnico's even in this camp. Malartic, held by Agnico Eagle. Camflo, held by Agnico Eagle. It's a known toll milling asset. It says Yamana here. I'm pretty sure that's inaccurate, but anyway.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't
we
worry about
can,
that. Yeah, but the
yeah,
idea is that
let's,
the
sorry, I
point
get
is
hung
you're
up.
surrounded. You're
And we
surrounded.
can continue this way. There's the Kiena, held by West Dome. There's others. There's El Dorado. There's the Sigma complex. So there are multiple toll milling options simply because of where we are on the planet. Look at all the mines. They're all gold mines.
It would
So
make no sense for you to even think about building your own
absolutely
mill,
not.
right?
Makes no sense economically, but let's put on our good corporate citizen hat. Does it really make any sense to build another processing mill and facility and tailings pond or facility from an
No.
environmental point of view when they're sitting there with capacity? No. So we'll pay someone to process it. That means we would dig it up on the property, we would crush it enough to get it on a truck, we would drive the truck, stockpile it. They would pause their own usage of the facility, then they would put our stuff through. And then they would, when we're done, they would clean it out. There'd be a reckoning of how much gold was produced. They'd take their cut, we'd get our cut, everybody goes home.
And to clarify, then what you said earlier is is scooping is scooping it out, bulk sampling it. What you're considering out, because you said you don't know yet, but you're waiting.
It's
You're
one of the
looking into it, and you're going to know
options.
enough.
We have a lot of choices in front of us right now, and one of them would be to strip, do some work. Assuming we've stripped the appropriate spot, we would then blast to generate a couple tons of material, and or however many tons of material we could, and then we would take that material and send it to somebody to process it for us. So the function of it is making sure we can get recovery. But the outcome would also be gold at the end of the line, which we would then just sell back to whomever did the processing.
And it's fair to say, Nicole, time is on your side, right? Because
Absolutely.
it seems like the price of gold, even if it's going up $20 a week, it's not going to be Bitcoin where it's going to go up a dramatic and drop and go through the roller coaster. I love Bitcoin, by the way, but it's not going to be that. It's just going to be times on your side because there's no reason to believe that gold will either settle here or just keep moving it. $20 here, $20 there, $50 there, $30 there.
Well,
Just
I don't see any big sellers of gold on the horizon when you consider that it's central banks that are buying it or China that's buying it. I don't see them selling it. So yeah, I think it's going to stabilize here. 20 bucks, 10 bucks, $5 up, down. There will be variability. It will be volatile, but it's not going to fall out of bed.
and then
Um,
last question. At that point, if it's there long enough, you'll be able to, even then, would you be able to would you able to redo this resource estimate in 6 months or 9 months and say, yeah, we're gonna move it up to $2,400, $2,500 an ounce gold?
Oh, we've done that. We've done that already. We do it.
Internally, but not for the rest of us.
Yeah, we do. Well, it may or may not go in the technical report when it's filed. I'm not too sure. We do. I had the engineer do a sensitivity analysis, meaning change the input price of gold. Nothing else changes. Just change the input price of gold. And you can see the impact on the resource. If you use a higher price of gold, you do increase the ounces within the resource. The other variability that's in there is the Canadian dollar, because the resource is computed, everything within the resource is referencing US dollars. So, you know, you could bring the currency factor into it if you wanted to. But you
Well, when
just
I
get
did
it more and
when I
more
did the interview with you
complex.
8 days ago, I used a different Canadian dollar converter into, because the Canadian dollar actually gained some strength over the last 8 days, but it still turned out to be a net higher number, 4,600 versus 4,500, because the price of gold rose faster than the strength of the Canadian dollar. So time is on your
Correct.
side.
I don't place time's on our side, honestly. And we have to make some choices. And you know, we're trying to bring information to bear to help us make those choices, see what our options really are, what's realistic, what are we prepared to do. Um, so we're taking our time to figure that out.
And that's a perfect segue into ending it here, because to be continued. This is like a Netflix series here. It's like, all right, what's gonna be the next step? So I can't wait to
Well,
have you
this is
back
it.
on for that. But in the meantime, congratulations. I mean, all the work you've done, you've been so laser focused on Renforth, and now you brought to this stage, and you're looking good, and you have options. So it's great that you have actually multiple options in front of you, Nicole. So hopefully your shareholders are happy. I mean, listen, all shareholders are impatient and they'd rather things happen much faster. We know that. But from a fundamental point of view, they've got to be happy with what they're seeing and how you're moving this along.
Well, I'm proud of this. Thank you. I mean, we used to have a property we called New Alger, which we declared the maiden resource for, and we made a discovery on the property, and then we sold it to the neighbor. And we made money on that. And that actually funded a bunch of drilling at Victoria. Now we've got Parbec, where we did again declare the maiden resource. We made we made a discovery as well, interpreted the geology for the first time. We improved on our resource. Now what's next for this one? I don't know. But I get a little frustrated because they always say, look to the track record. It's not necessarily indicative because, you can be a CEO of multiple companies. It doesn't mean it's good for your shareholders. But I'm one of my own largest shareholders, and I've done this before. And I'm very excited to have this gold deposit. Wish I could tell you what I was going to do with it yet, but I can't tell you that. But I'm happy to tell you
If
once.
if you told us everything, we wouldn't have you back. You just tell us everything in one shot, and we'd say thanks, see you later, and we move on to somebody else. But leave
Like
a little,
Netflix. We gotta leave a
leave,
little on the table.
leave a little on the table, leave that carrot dangling, to be
Yeah.
continued. But congratulations, Nicole. Thank you so much. Great result. And we can't wait to have you back.
Thanks very much. Appreciate everyone's time. Questions, email me, Nicole@renforthresources.com.
Everybody at home, you've been watching or you listen by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, to Nicole Brewster. She's the CEO of Renforth Resources, trades in Canada, RFR, in the US, RFHRF. For our friends in Europe on Frankfurt, 9RR. They've got the gold, they've got the pricing, they've got options in front of them. So you got to keep Renforth in your scopes, guys, because if you're confident and if you're bullish on the future of gold, and if you're bullish on the future of Canada, because we got this renewed energy in the country to develop our own resources, then you may have discovered your next great small cap resources company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time.
Hey, small cap fam. I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and AGORACOM? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great AGORACOM small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.